Good morning, all of you. How are you all? Hope you all are fine. Could you please stop sending me messages? Yes, good morning. Sai Pranav, who is this Shiny, Ravali, Vamsi Shetty. I request all of you to turn on your cameras. Have a nice smile on your face. Soumya, won't you laugh? Okay. Shall we start our session? Good. Okay, just wait. Let me adjust the screen now. So this is what we have been through in the last session. So Unit 2, A Reading, Oliver Asks for More, written by the great writer Charles Dickens. And the aim of this lesson is to make you understand the social issues of our country. Which social issue is being discussed in this chapter? Child labor, isn't it? Have you all attended the previous session? Yes. So 10 participants raised the hand. Please stop raising your hands also because I'm getting a light disturbance. Stop chatting as well and listen to what I say. So our today's agenda is introduction of the topic, vocabulary explanation, reading and homework. Okay, let's discuss about the vocabulary here. So the first word that is given here is gold laced cuff. You could see a woman's hand here and she wears a gold laced cuff. Are you all able to see it? Okay. And the next word is oakum, loose fiber obtained by untwisting and picking apart old ropes. This is also ladle. So it can also be taken as a verb as well, but it is given as a noun here. Okay, and today's vocabulary section, state of affairs. State of affairs, a situation or set of circumstances. A situation or a set of circumstances. This state of affairs can no longer be ignored. This situation can no longer be ignored. You cannot avoid this situation no longer. What a shocking state of affairs. What a shocking situation it is. What a shocking set of circumstances. So the meaning of this phrase state of affairs, it means a situation or set of circumstances. This state of affairs can no longer be ignored. What a shocking state of affairs. See the next word, starve. What do you mean by starve? Suffer or die or cause to suffer or die from hunger. Starvation. The animals were left to starve to death. The animals were left to starve to death. It means the animals were left without giving any food. So slowly what is going to happen? They will die. Starvation, hungry. Thousands of people will starve if food doesn't reach the city. If the food doesn't reach the city at the proper time, what is going to happen? People will be died due to starvation. Starvation, it means a situation where you won't have enough food to eat. Inmate, a person confined to an institution such as a prison or hospital. The prison's inmates, it means the persons who are staying inside that prison. The persons, those who are staying inside that prison is called inmates. So the prison's inmates are being kept in their cells. The jail has 500 inmates. So what do you mean by that? The jail has 500 inmates. It means 500 prisoners are there in the jail. The next word is shrink. Shrink, shrank, shrunk. Shrink, S-H-R-I-N-K. This is verb 1, and verb 2 form is S-H-R-A-N-K, and verb 3 form is S-H-R-U-N-K. Shrunk. Become or make smaller in size or amount. Become or make smaller in size or amount. So when you buy a cotton shirt, what happens after washing 2 or 3 times? It will shrink in size. It will become smaller in size, isn't it? Cotton dresses, when you buy, it's fine. So after washing 1 or 2 times, what is going to happen? It will shrink in size. It will become smaller in size. Will this soap shrink woolen clothes? Will this shirt shrink in the wash? So these are the example sentences. Will this soap? So if I use this soap, will it shrink woolen clothes? That is the question. Will this shirt shrink in the washer? If I wash this shirt, will it shrink? Will it become smaller? Apron. Apron. A protective garment worn over the front of one's clothes and tied at the back. You can see an apron. The picture is given here. So maybe your mothers will use it in the kitchen because as a curry soup or something, it will fall onto your dress and it will make the dress dirty. So to avoid such circumstances, usually your mothers, they will wear an apron to protect your clothes from curries, I mean soups. So your dresses will not be getting stained. The next word is whisper. You usually whisper, isn't it? Speak very softly. Speak very softly using one's breath rather than one's throat, especially for the sake of secrecy. So if you want to convey a secret to your friend, usually you whisper in somebody's ears, isn't it? Yes, that is what is called whispering. Did she whisper in your ear at the meeting? Did she whisper something in your ear at the meeting? You don't know how to whisper. No one can hear us. So there is no need to whisper here because there is nobody here. So you can speak loudly. You don't have to whisper. No one can hear us. And the next word is stupefy. Stupefy, stupefied, stupefied. What do you mean by stupefy? Stupefy, it means make someone unable to think or feel properly. He was stupefied at the news. So he got surprised, he got startled maybe. He was stupefied at the news, it means he was unable to think or feel properly after hearing that particular news. She was stupefied with cold. What do you mean by that? She was unable to think or feel properly due to cold. Astonishment, a great surprise. Astonishment, which means a great surprise. See the example sentences. She looked at him in astonishment. She looked at him in great surprise. To her astonishment, to her great surprise, he smiled. She never thought that he would smile, but he smiled. So she got surprised. See the next word, rebel. A person who rises in opposition. A person who rises in opposition. Government troops have succeeded in capturing the rebel leader. Rebel leader, it means here a person who works against the government, who opposes the system of government. So government troops, maybe soldiers, or maybe police, maybe soldiers, they have succeeded in capturing, it means getting caught, the rebel leader, a person who works or who functions against the government system. She fell into the clutches of the rebel forces. She fell. She was caught by the rebel or rebellions. The next word is cling. Hold on tightly to. Hold on tightly to. She clung to Joy's arms. She clung to Joy's arm. It means she hold tightly Joy's arm. Small children cling to their mothers. Usually when you are going to market, when you were a child, you used to cling to your mother. You hold her hand very tightly. That is what is meant here. And the next word is nudge. A slight push or shake. A slight push or shake. I gave him a nudge to wake him up. I gave him a nudge to wake him up. I shook his body to wake him up from sleeping. Hannah gave me a gentle nudge. Hannah gave me a gentle push, a small push or a slight push. That is what is called a nudge. Desperate. Here you have another good word, desperate. Feeling or showing a hopeless sense. So the situation is not good. It is not hopeless. No, it is a hopeless situation. A hopeless sense that a situation is so bad as to be impossible to deal with. So the situation is not good to deal with. So the situation is a little bit hopeless. His failure made him desperate. His failure, he failed in the examinations, which made him desperate. There is no hope at all now. They are in desperate need of food and shelter. So they are in a very bad situation. They are in a desperate, a hopeless situation. They urgently need food and shelter. Next one, reckless. A reckless person. It means a reckless boy. It means an irresponsible person. He doesn't shoulder any responsibility. He simply roams here and there. A reckless driver is there. He may cause a lot of accidents if you drive recklessly. She was charged with reckless driving. The police caught her or arrested her because of her reckless driving. She was a good rider, but reckless. Her riding is good, but she is very careless. She is very irresponsible. Okay, so this is the vocabulary that we will see in this particular part of the lesson. So let me explain. No, let us go through it once again. A state of affairs, it means a situation or set of circumstances. The second word is starve, suffer or die or cause to suffer or die from hunger. And the third word is inmate, inmates of your house. What do you mean by that? It means you, your father, your mother, your sister, your brother, your grandfather, and your grandmother. Who is inside that house, they can be called as the inmates. Shrink, shrink it means to become or make smaller in size or amount. The next word is apron. When you go to a restaurant, when you go to a good restaurant, you could see their chefs, everybody is wearing an apron, especially the suppliers, because when they supply the curries and something should not be, even if it fails, it should not be getting, their dress should not be getting stained. Whisper, speak very softly, especially in somebody's ears. That is what is called a whisper. Stupefy, make unable to think or feel properly. So in some certain circumstances, you may not be able to think properly. You may not be able to feel properly. Astonishment, a great surprise. It means she looked at him in astonishment. It means she looked at that particular person in great surprise. Rebel, a person who opposes. That is what you have to understand. A person who opposes a system. Cling, hold on tightly to or hold on. Nudge, nudge, a slight push or shake. A slight push or shake. Desperate, a hopeless situation, isn't it? A hopeless sense. Reckless, it means irresponsible. She was charged with reckless driving, irresponsible driving. Okay, and I think okay. Yes, sir, stammered the boy. Well, you have come here to be educated and taught a useful trade, said the red-faced gentleman in the high chair. You see the middle part of the slide. You can see, well, you have come here to be educated and taught a useful trade, said the red-faced gentleman in the high chair. This is where we stopped in the previous session, I think. So somehow we will start from there. So you will begin to pick oakum tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. So this is a work which is assigned to Oliver. You will begin pick oakum tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. So this is a little hard because if I wake you up early in the morning at 6 o'clock and I will ask you to do some work from 6 o'clock to evening 6 o'clock, will you be happy with that? No. In your house, your father and mother will never give you work like that, but this is a workhouse. This is a kind of orphanage. So whatever the officials say, the children had to follow that. There is no, they cannot resist. They cannot resist. This is This is the situation there. Added the surly, added the serious one in the white waistcoat. Oliver bowed low. Oliver again showed respect by bending his head down. Directed by the beadle, then the beadle took him to somewhere else. What is that? Where is that? And was then hurried away. They moved fast to a large ward where on a rough, hard bed. The bed where he was sleeping is not soft. It was hard as stones. Hard bed. He sobbed himself to sleep. He sobbed. He started crying. Cried. And slowly he fell asleep. So you might have observed small children. They will ask for something to their parents. Later what happens? The parents will not provide what they ask for. They start crying. It will continue for some time and slowly the child will sleep. Poor Oliver, as he lay sleeping, unconscious of everything around him, what is happening around him, he doesn't have any idea. He knows only one thing, that tomorrow morning onwards, he has to go ahead with picking oakum at 6 o'clock early in the morning. The board had taken a decision that would change the course of his life. So tomorrow onwards, the life of Oliver will be changed. Till now, he didn't do any work. But from tomorrow onwards, he had to work. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. The members of this board were very wise and philosophical men. The members of this board, which board? The life board. Oliver went to a large room where the board meeting was held, isn't it? So the members who were sitting there, actually 8 to 10 gentlemen were there. They were very wise and philosophical men. According to them, we will see whether they are very wise or philosophical. As they turned their attention to the workhouse, when they observed the workhouse, it means where Oliver and the remaining orphan children stay. They discovered that, they found out that it was the regular place of public entertainment for the poorer classes. They thought that this workhouse is a regular place for the general public, especially these parentless children. They come here and enjoy a lot. This is a place for entertainment. Do you really think that this is a place for entertainment? No, it is not the regular place for entertainment. All the children will have to work from morning to evening. But according to these board members, live board members, who were considered to be very wise and philosophical, they are telling that this is the public place for entertainment, especially for the poorer classes. It was the place where they had breakfast. So it is the place where these children have their breakfast, dinner, breakfast, which they have in the morning, dinner, at night, tea, maybe in the evening, and supper, the food that you eat before you go to bed, all the year round and free. So these poorer classes, they will get breakfast, dinner, tea, and supper all the year round and free, where it was all play and no work. According to these board members, what they are thinking is that the inmates of the workhouse who are staying inside the workhouse, they are enjoying too much there. They don't have any work. They only play and they eat their food 3 times. This was really a shocking state of affairs. This was really a shocking situation. They were of the opinion that the poor should be given only 2 alternatives. So they were of the opinion the poor should be given only 2 choices. What are those 2 choices? Either the one thing is that they starve quickly outside the workhouse. If they are staying outside the workhouse, they won't get enough food. They will be died. They starve quickly outside the workhouse or gradually inside the house. So the alternative, both the choices are almost the same. If they're staying outside, they starve quickly. If they're staying inside, the situation will be the same. With this view, they decided that the inmates of the workhouse, who are the inmates of the workhouse, Oliver and the remaining parentless children, remaining orphan children, would be issued 3 meals of thin gruel a day. They decided that the inmates of the workhouse would be issued. So Oliver and his friends will be issued 3 meals of 3 times they will be provided meals of thin gruel a day. Gruel already showed you the picture. It is made with rice and oats of thin gruel, and even the gruel is not thick. It is thin with an onion twice a week. With an onion, 2 times in a week, they will get an onion. If your mother is serving you some rice and one onion, will you be satisfied with that? No, you will start scolding your mother, isn't it? You need some dal, curd, chicken, mutton, some other curries, isn't it? Brinjal, lady's finger. If your mother, one plate of rice along with onion, you eat. Sai Pranav, you eat the food. Will Sai Pranav be happy? No, Sai Pranav will be very angry, and he will throw that rice as well, I think. Maybe. So here, the wise and the philosophical men, they decided that the inmates of the workhouse should be given only 3 meals of thin gruel. If it is thick gruel, it's fine. It is just like 1 glass of milk along with 10 glasses of water. It mixed and made a tea. What would be the situation? It will be different. 1 glass of milk along with 10 glasses of water. What may be the shape? Would you like to have a tea with that composition? You may not like it, isn't it? 1 glass of milk, half glass of water, we can adjust. 1 glass of milk, 10 glass of water. Will you adjust? You will never. So here the children were provided thin gruel, not thick gruel, and with an onion twice a week. You see the situation of the children. They are getting 3 times meals, just a thin gruel without any curries, only one onion twice a week. Onion they won't get every day. Twice, 2 times in a week. Okay. So that paragraph finished. I will read that paragraph once again. If there is any hard word, you can underline it and understand the pronunciation of that word as well. The members of this board were very wise and philosophical men. As they turned their attention to the workers, they discovered that it was the regular place of public entertainment for the poorer classes. It was the place where they had breakfast, dinner, tea, and supper all the year round and free, where it was all play and no work. This was really a shocking state of affairs. They were of the opinion that the poor should be given only 2 alternatives. 2 alternatives, underline that word as well. Either to starve quickly outside the workhouse or gradually inside the house. With this view, they decided that the inmates of the workhouse would be issued 3 meals of thin gruel a day with an onion twice a week. Okay, let's move on to the next paragraph. For the first 6 months after Oliver Twist was moved in, the system was in full operation. For the first 6 months after Oliver Twist was moved in, so Oliver Twist was closed almost 6 months in that workhouse. The system was in full operation. What system? 3 meals a day. 3 meals, it means they used to get a thin gruel and with an onion twice a week. The system was in full operation as a result. Because of this, during this period, during this 6 months, the number of workhouse inmates got smaller. So who are staying in that workhouse, they all got smaller. I mean thinner, because they are not getting enough food to eat. In other words, they are not getting enough food or the good food or with all the elements they need to get. The number of workhouse inmates got smaller, and the inmates themselves shrank in size and became thinner. So if you eat this kind of food for almost 6 months, what is going to happen? No fruits, no vitamins, nothing is there in that food. So what's going to happen? You will become thinner, thinner, and thinner. So the same thing happened here as well. And the inmates, those who are staying inside their workhouse, themselves shrank, became small in size and became thinner. So almost 6 months they were given only thin gruel a day. So that's all about that paragraph. Let me read that paragraph once again. For the first 6 months after Oliver Twist was moved in, the system was in full operation. As a result, because of that, during this period, the number of workhouse inmates got smaller, and the inmates themselves shrank in size and became thinner. Okay. Next paragraph. The room in which the boys were fed. The room in which the boys were fed. It means boys were given food. The boys were given food. The boys were given thin gruel. Was a large stone hall. The hall was built with a very, very big stones. With a big copper bowl at one end. There was one copper bowl you can observe at one end. What may be the content of the copper bowl? Thin gruel, which is going to be supplied, which is going to be served to the orphans, including Oliver. With a big copper bowl at one end, out of which the master, so there is a master, dressed in an apron. Apron, already I showed you the picture of that dress. Dressed in an apron for the purpose and assisted by one or two women. There were one or two women to help the master in cooking as well as for serving the food. Ladled the gruel at mealtime, the morning, afternoon and evening. These two women, they served the gruel to the children of that workhouse. Of this festive composition, each boy had one basinful and no more. So every day, every mealtime, these children, these inmates of the workhouse, they used to get one basin full of gruel. One basin full of gruel. A basin, it's a very small vessel. It's a very small vessel. One basin full of gruel. No more. Nothing more is given. If you ask for the second time, what is going to happen? It will be horrible. So they don't have the what we can say. They cannot ask the gruel for the second time. Actually, whatever they get for the first time, they should be satisfied with that. Of this festive composition, each boy had one basinful and no more, except on occasions of great public rejoicing. If there is a festival or something, they will be given more food, I think. We will see what they are going to give. When he had 2 ounces and a quarter of bread besides. A quarter of bread besides. So take a bread piece, cut it into four pieces. A bread piece you take, cut it into 4 pieces. In that, one piece can be called as a quarter of the bread. If your mother is taking one bread piece and it will be cut into 4 pieces, and if she gives you 1 piece, will you be satisfied with that? At least you will eat 4 or 5 pieces of bread, isn't it? 4 or 5 pieces of bread. But here what happens? These children will be provided by a quarter of bread. Quarter of bread, it means a bread will be cut into 4 pieces, and out of that 4 pieces, 1 will be given, and 2 ounces more, 2 ounces gruel more, even though it is not sufficient for them to make it as a good meal. So the situation of the workhouse inmates, it is very horrible for them. Okay, let me read that paragraph once again. The room in which the boys were fed was a large stone hall with a big copper bowl at one end, out of which the master, dressed in an apron for the purpose and assisted by 1 or 2 women, ladled the gruel at mealtime. Of this festive composition, each boy had 1 basinful and no more, except on occasion of great public rejoicing. So here, great public rejoicing, it means it may be a festival. When he had 2 ounces and a quarter of bread besides, he refers to Oliver Twist. Okay, let's go to the next paragraph. The basins never wanted washing. So the basins in which they eat their gruel, they never wanted washing. Why? The boys polished them with their spoons till they shone again. The boys, as the food is not sufficient, the boys, they polish their basins with their spoons till they shone again. It means suppose you haven't been given food for 1 day. After that, I gave you a chicken biryani. So what may be the circumstance then? You will eat completely that. You will eat completely that. Even if one rice is there, you will take that also and eat, isn't it? Then your mother will say that, oh, you are completely finished and this plate is no more needed for washing, isn't it? So here, the basins never wanted washing. The boys polished them with their spoons till they shone again. They have great appetite here. They have a great hungry here. That's why even a small particle of rice is there on the basin. They used to eat that also. So this is the circumstance they are facing in the workhouse. When they had performed this operation, what operation? The eating of food, I mean gruel from the basin, they completely, when they had performed this operation, they would sit staring at the copper bowl. They would sit staring at the copper bowl. Is there something remaining or not in that big copper bowl? With such eager eyes, with such anxious eyes, with such keen eyes, as if they could have devoured the big bowl itself and everything it. They have the hungry, they have the appetite even to eat that copper bowl as well. Even to eat that copper bowl as well. So they have never got sufficient food to eat. Every day, whenever they were offered some food, the situation is different. See the situation of the children there. It is very horrible, isn't it? With such eager eyes, as if they could have devoured, they could have eaten the big bowl itself and everything in it. It looks like their eyes looks like they could eat something more. At the same time, they sucked their fingers most carefully. They sucked their fingers most carefully. For what purpose? To catch up any stray splashes of gruel that might have stuck there on. Any stray splashes. Sometimes in your school itself, you can observe the lower class students, especially LKG, UKG, first class, second class, after eating during lunch break, when they're going to wash their hands, the food will be stuck in their fingers. Have you ever noticed that? Yes. In case of you also, I think. When you eat food, after finishing, there may be some food stuck on your fingers. When you go wash it, you clean it, isn't it? But you observe your parents' hands after they are eating. They will suck they might suck their fingers to clean the fingers. I mean, even if there is a small rice, they used to eat it because they don't want to waste the rice. Here, at the same time, they sucked their fingers most carefully to catch up any stray splashes. If there is remaining parts, something is left in their fingers or on their fingers, they used to eat that all gruel that might have stuck there on. Boys have generally excellent appetite. So this is a common statement, isn't it? Comparing with the girls, boys have generally excellent appetite. You go to a function, you could say boys, they don't mind others who are sitting around. They will start eating quickly. But girls, how do they eat? They will look around. Anybody is noticing me or not? If somebody is noticing me, it is not good to eat like this, isn't it? So they will take rice very slowly and they will eat in a fashion. They will eat in a fashion. But boys, they don't mind. They don't check the situation how it is. When they are getting food, they will eat food without looking at somebody. So boys have generally excellent appetite. Oliver Twist and his companions, another good word here. Oliver Twist and his friends who are staying with him suffered the tortures of slow starvation for 3 months. Oliver Twist and his friends suffered. They are suffering too much there. Suffered the tortures. Torture, it means the sufferings which is being given by the board of slow starvation. What torture they are facing here? Slow starvation. They wanted to have some more food. Otherwise, soon what is going to happen? They all will go, or they all will die because of their hungry. Slow starvation for 3 months, almost 3 months again. They had to go ahead with these kind of torture. At last, At last, what happened? Let's see the next slide. At last, they got so voracious. They got so voracious. Voracious, it means they wanted great quantities of food. They wanted great quantities of food. They got so voracious and wild with hunger. They got very angry as they were not provided enough food to eat. They got voracious and wild with hunger. They became wild. And that one boy, and there was one boy who was staying with them, was tall for his age. That boy was very tall. That boy was very tall comparing with the other boys who are staying in the workhouse and hadn't been used to that sort of thing. That boy, when he was at home, he used to eat a lot of food. But when he was placed in the orphanage, when he was placed in the workhouse, every day he is getting a little amount of food. So when he was at home, when he had his father and mother, they used to feed him well. But when his father, when his mother died, when he became parentless, he was brought to the workhouse. And what happened? The situation had changed. When he was at home, he used to eat a lot. But when he was in the workhouse, he used to get a little amount of food. For his father had kept a small cook shop. See, when he was at home, his father had a cook shop as well. So he used to get a lot of amount of food, a large amount of food. That's why it is mentioned here as he was not used to that sort of a thing. Hinted darkly to his companions. One day he said to his friends, it means who are staying with him. I mean Oliver and the remaining inmates of the workhouse. What he hinted darkly? That unless he had another basin of gruel per day, every day, I want to get to one more basin of gruel every day. Otherwise, this boy is very tall, isn't it? He is commanding to his companions. He is commanding to Oliver and the remaining children. If he is not getting one more basin full of gruel, he was afraid he might some night happen to eat the boy who slept next to him. If you are not giving me one more basin full of gruel, I will eat one of you. I will eat one of you. Especially the boy who sleeps beside me every day. Especially the boy who sleeps beside me. So who sleeps beside him? Who happened to be a weakly youth of tender age. A small child was sleeping beside him. So the tall boy said that every day I want to get one more basin full of gruel. Otherwise, I will eat the boy who sleeps beside me. He may be joking, isn't it? Is he able to eat a boy? Is he able to eat a child? No. Then he had a wild, hungry eye. This tall boy had a wild and hungry eye. And they believed him. The remaining children, Oliver and his companions, they believed him. If they are not providing him one more basin of gruel per day, he is going to eat the boy who sleeps beside him. So all the children got afraid. They thought that this boy really said that, and if he is not getting one more basin full of gruel, he will definitely eat the boy who sleeps beside him. So the remaining children, remaining inmates of the workhouse, they got worried, they got tensed, they got scared. A council was held, a meeting was held. Lots were cast. What do you mean by lots were cast? And why these lots were cast? As to who should walk up to the master after supper that evening and ask for more. So lots, it means there were many children in that. Who is going to ask the master for one more basin of gruel? So nobody is willing to go because master itself is a fierce person. He is very horrible. So if who is going to ask to the master for one more basin, he will definitely slap on his face. There is no doubt regarding that, isn't it? So what they do is that nobody was willing to go and ask. Then they decided one thing. Lots were cast. They wrote everybody's name in small chits, and they selected one person's name. Finally, it fell to our Oliver Twist. So after supper this evening, after dinner this evening, Oliver had to go to the master. Oliver had to go to the master and ask for one more basin of gruel. One more basin of gruel. So Oliver's situation is very dangerous, isn't it? So the master never served out two basin to one child, and the children doesn't have the authority to ask one more basin full of gruel. So that is the situation. So I got you understand till now, and I wanted all of you to read the lesson till that we learned today. And the remaining thing is one more thing you have to do at the end of this lesson. You will have question and answer session. So first three question answers you write on a paper and show me in the next class. Okay. So we will be continuing in the next session. Thank you all.
Good morning to everyone. I'm your physical science teacher. Okay. In the last class, we discussed, that means we started our second chapter, friction. Okay. We stopped lab activity in the middle only. So I'll continue the topic now. Wait, I'll start my screen sharing. Yes. So in this lab activity, we completed up to this topic. So here, once again, I want to repeat this. Okay, in this main theme of this activity, to understand the nature of friction and the concept of static friction. Okay, so here we are taken one toy trolley, yes, and one wooden block and an extensible string, weight hanger, yes, and weights and pulley, and one table. Yes, so here we are taken one small toy trolley and we kept one small wooden block on each. Yes. Now we tie an inextensible string to the trolley and we pass it over the pulley. Now we fix one weight hanger here. To this weight hanger, we added some small weights. Now we are added small weights one by one on the weight hanger. So we observe that the trolley starts moving on the table with respect to the addition of weights. Yes, so the trolley starts moving on the table with respect to the addition of weights to the weight hanger. So the surface of the trolley tries to keep the block, this the surface of the trolley tries to keep the block at rest with respect to its surface. So here we observe that the force of friction by the surface of the trolley acting on the block and the force applied by the block on the trolley act in opposite direction. Okay. So here the block on the trolley acts in opposite direction to each other here. Yes. So here the force which opposes the relative motion of two surfaces of bodies which are in contact is called frictional force. Yes. So in activity 1 we learn the book moves with respect to the floor. So that friction we call as a sliding friction. So sliding friction is the friction which comes into play when the surface of one object moves to the here. When the surface of one object moves to the relative to the surface of the another object. Here, the block is at rest and it is relative to the surface of the trolley up to here a certain limiting acceleration. This block is at rest and it is related to the surface of this trolley up to a certain limiting acceleration. So the friction existing at this stage is static friction. Okay, we can say this friction as a static friction. So we can say that static friction is the friction which comes into play when surface of the objects are at rest relative to the another object. Even there is an external force acted upon. Here you can observe this static friction is also one of the friction. So when it is comes into play here, when surface of the objects are at rest relative to each other. So here the surface of the block is at rest position and it is relative to the trolley surface here. So these two surfaces are relative. Yes, these two surfaces are related to each other. Even there is an external force acted upon. So here when we are increasing the weights to this weight hanger, even the two surfaces are relative to each other. The surface of the block and the surface of the toy trolley. Yes. So we can say that this static friction is when the surface of the objects are at rest relative to each other, even there is an external force acted upon. Okay. So here from this activity we observe that there exist two types of frictional force at a time. So what are the two forces here? One is friction between surface of the table and trolley. Here you can observe on the surface of the table and the surface of the trolley. This is one of the friction here. And another is static friction that exists between the surface of the trolley and wooden block kept on it. Here frictional force between surface of the table and trolley, and static friction exists between the surface of the trolley and wooden block kept on it. Okay, so from this activity we observe these two types of frictional forces at a time. Okay, so our next topic, observing the variations of friction. Now, observing the variations of friction. Now, for this we need to take one wooden block or one heavy box. Now here we have to push a heavy box which is kept on a floor with a small force to move horizontally. Okay, here the boy was pushing the box in horizontal direction towards his left. Yes, now here this is a very heavy box. So here the box does not move because there is a frictional force which is equal and opposite to the applied force on the box. Okay. Here the box does not move because there is a frictional force which is equal and opposite to the applied force on the object. Here the boy applying the force on the box in this direction, right? The frictional force acting on the box in opposite direction. So that's why the box does not move here. So here gradually increase the applied force. He applied the force continuously. But still box does not move because the frictional force also increases accordingly and thus balances the increased applied force. Here frictional force continuously increasing and it is balances the increased applied force here. So that's why the box still does not move. So from this we can conclude that static friction is a self-adjusting force. Static friction is a self-adjusting force. But there is a limit to this static friction. Okay, there is a limit to the static friction also. As you keep on increasing, okay, as you keep on increasing the applied force, at some point the box starts moving. That is when the applied force is more than the limit of the static friction. Listen this point very carefully. When the applied force is more than the limit of the static friction. Okay, here the body starts move. When the applied force is more than limit of the static friction? The body starts move. Here, when the box is sliding on the floor, the friction between them is sliding friction. Here, the friction between the surface of the bottom surface of the box and the surface of the floor is known as sliding friction. Okay, so that's why we can say that when the box is sliding on the floor, the friction between them is called sliding friction. Okay, now next one. Effect of roughness on frictional force. Effect of roughness of frictional force. So here we have to set up an inclined plane on the horizontal floor. Okay, use a wooden board as inclined plane. Here we set up an inclined plane on the horizontal floor. We use a wooden board as inclined plane. Now, here we have to put a mark at any point on the inclined plane. Okay, on this inclined plane. Now, let a glass marble or a ball move down from this point. So here we kept on this inclined plane ball. So take this as a point A now. Now here from this point the ball move down. Now here we have to note the distance covered by the ball from the bottom of the inclined plane to point where it comes to a stop. From this point to this point we have to take the distance. Okay, here we have noted the distance covered by this ball or glass marble from the bottom of the inclined plane to point where it comes to a stop. Now, here spread a cloth over the floor. Okay, now spread a cloth over floor. So here, make sure that there are no wrinkles in the cloth. Now try again with glass marble or ball, and again we have to note down the distance. Here, what are your observations from this experiment? In which case is the distance covered maximum? And in which case the distance covered minimum? And why is the distance covered by the pencil cell different on different surfaces? Here, what are your observations from this experiment means? We have here the ball or the marble glass goes for a little more distance than the pencil cell. Okay, here the ball or the marble goes for a little more distance than the pencil cell. So here, in which case the distance covered maximum? When we use the ball or the marble, the distance covered maximum here. And in which case the distance covered minimum? When we use pencil cell, here the distance covered minimum. Here, why is the distance covered by the pencil cell different on different surfaces? Because pencil cell's lateral surface gets total contact on the inclined plane and experiences the friction completely. Pencil cell's lateral surface gets total contact on the inclined plane and experiences the friction completely. Whereas the ball or the marble does not get total contact to the inclined plane. Hence, it receives a little friction. Okay, the ball or the marble does not get total contact to the inclined plane. So it receives a little friction. Okay. Now, if you do this above activity by replacing the cloth with white marble surface or glass surface, can you predict the distance covered by the pencil cell? Here, when we done this experiment by replacing the cloth with a white marble surface or glass surface, the distance covered by pencil cell is more. Okay, remember this point. The distance covered by pencil cell is more. So now, from this, we can conclude that the smoothness or roughness of the both the floor and the glass marble could affect the distance traveled by it. Okay, here the smoothness, roughness of the surface of both the floor and the glass marble could affect the distance traveled by it. Here, many surfaces look like perfect planes. Many surfaces look like perfect planes. There exist many ups and downs. Okay, when we observe the surface of the object closely, there exist many ups and downs. That means irregularities of surface. Okay, so there exist many ups and downs on them. Here, friction is caused by the irregularities on the two surfaces which are in contact. So irregularities on the two surfaces lock into one another. When we observe the surface very closely, we'll observe the ups and downs on them. So here, irregularities on the two surfaces which are in contact, they lock one into another. when we attempt to move on any surface, we have to apply a force to overcome interlocking. So on rough surface, there exists a large number of irregularities. That means ups and downs. When we observe the rough surface very closely, we observe the ups and downs. So hence, the force of friction is greater if a rough surface is involved. When compared to the smooth surface, the rough surface has more friction because on the rough surface, large number of irregularities present. Okay. So here, the force of friction is greater. A rough surface is involved. Yes, please mute your audio. Okay. Now, when compared to smooth surface and rough surface, on the smooth surface, less number of irregularities will observe, and on the rough surface will observe more large number of irregularities. So we can say that force of friction is greater on the rough surface than when compared to the smooth surface. Now, next one. Effect of area of contact on frictional force. Now, how the area of contact affect the frictional force? Observe carefully. First of all, tie a string around a brick. Okay, so here we are taken one brick and one spring balance. Yes, now you can observe here, this is one brick. So tie a string around a brick and pull the brick by using a spring balance. Okay, here we use a spring balance as a device to measure the applied force. Okay, we are using the spring balance to measure the yes, applied force. How much force we are applying here? Here, that one we are observing on this spring balance. Here, in a spring balance, the spring is stretched by the applied force. The change in the length of the spring is proportional to the applied force here. When we apply some force on the spring, then the length will be changed. So it will show some values on this device, right? So here, the change in the length of the spring is proportional to the applied force. So we can measure the values on this scale. So the scale of the spring balance directly gives the applied force in newtons. And in some spring balances, the force is given in kilogram weight also. Okay, we may observe Newton or kilogram. Okay, So by pulling it back, we can observe the values on spring balance scale. We may measure in newtons or in kilograms. Now, pull it to move the brick. We are pulling the spring balance to move the brick. Now we have to note down the reading of spring balance when the brick just begins to move. Okay. Now, here, how many forces do act on the brick in the horizontal direction? How many forces do act on the brick in the horizontal direction? In this direction. Here, two forces act on the brick in the horizontal direction. One is force of friction and small f is the force of friction and capital F is the force applied by us. This small f is the force of friction and this capital F is the force applied by us. So these two forces act on the brick in the horizontal direction. Now, here the applied force is equal to the maximum. The applied force is equal to the maximum. Okay, that means here this applied force is equal to the maximum limit of the frictional force at the instant when the brick just begins to move. But they act in opposite direction. Right? Here the applied force is in capital F. We denoted with capital F. And frictional force is with small f. Yes, these two are in opposite direction. Yes, this frictional force is opposite to the applied force. So that's why here they act in opposite direction. So you can note down its value by observing the reading of the spring balance. So here, in this way, we can measure the maximum frictional force offered by the surface. We can measure the maximum frictional force offered by the surface. Okay, now here we have to change the position of the brick. Now turn the brick upright like this so that the contact area with the floor becomes small. Yes, in the first case, the contact area with the floor is more. Now it becomes small. This is the contact area with floor. Now we have to repeat the same experiment and we have to measure the friction using the spring balance. Here, how does the frictional force vary with the change in the area of contact? Yes. How does the frictional force vary with the change in the area of the contact? Here, there is no change in the frictional force in both cases, as the frictional force is independent of the area of contact. Here area of contact does not depend upon the frictional force. So that's why there is no change in the frictional force in the both cases. Okay, so when we kept the brick in horizontal direction, now the brick is upright in vertical direction. In the both cases, there is no change in the frictional force. That is equal. So here we can say that the frictional force is independent of the area of the contact. Yes. So also we can say that the frictional force appears to be the same in both cases, irrespective of area of contact of the surface. Okay. So here, remember that the area of the contact does not affect the frictional force. Okay. Now, yes, I'll give you some questions to homework. Okay. Now, from your textbook, complete the first 3 questions. Okay. On reflection concept. From the reflection concept, complete the 3 questions. Okay. This is your homework. Right.